All right, guys, welcome back to the FPL One Percenters Podcast. We are reviewing game week 14, looking ahead to game week 15 and 16 Boxing Day fixtures. First of all, Merry Christmas, everyone. Hammer, welcome to the pod this week.
Excited to be here.
I know, right? Looking forward to it, man. So much football
Yeah.
over the next couple of days. We had this debate about Christmas movies versus Boxing Day fixtures. So it's going to be ongoing for the next couple of days. But essentially, what we do here, if it's the first time you're joining us, is jump online, discuss the previous game week, look ahead to what's coming up. This week, we're going to look in depth at game week 18 and 19, which is a blank and then followed by a double game week. Big opportunity for points there. And we're right in the midst of Christmas FPL drama. So, Ahmed, let's jump straight into it. But before we do that, FPL One Percenters brought to you by Footsapp. Our friends at Footsapp created a fantastic app that takes all of the hassle out of organizing football session, essentially. Finding out who's in, who's out, making teams, has a chat function built in. Essentially, fantasy football for grassroots football. Very cool. Links are in the description. Have a look. But Hammer, let's jump straight into it, man. How was the game week? High scoring?
Yeah, it was pretty high scoring, but surprisingly, the average is also pretty low. So, like, if you had
That's good, right?
Fernandez, you killed it.
I know. I was quite excited. Who did you captain, Salah or Bruno?
I kept on Salah, and
Okay,
the game
nice.
didn't start particularly well.
Yeah,
I think he
I
got
captain Bruno.
up to 60 minutes, right?
Yeah, I captain Bruno. I was feeling very smug with myself when Salah was on the bench. And then we were all on the WhatsApp group, and then he kind of came on. He's too greedy, man. He just loves scoring goals, so he couldn't resist. But do you see how vexed Mane got as well?
Yeah, I think he hasn't scored in like 6 games. So when he went off, I think he was upset because he finally got his goal. He thought he could get back, get a second, get his form going, and
Yeah,
he got
true.
subbed off. Yeah.
Okay, they're always vexed, but fair enough. I mean, it's good for FPL managers because they're both hungry to score as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, anyone who had a Bruno captain after that Salah performance was stressed, right?
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, we were worried. I wasn't around on the Saturday, but I was watching football on the Sunday, so you know what? I thought, let me go with Bruno. Again, it was that dilemma of Salah away and Bruno. This is what you said, right? Salah away versus
Bruno at home.
Bruno at home. So it was a bit of a dilemma. But essentially, he paid off, man. He paid off big
Yeah.
time.
Well, we always say Bruno doesn't do well at home, Salah
Yeah,
doesn't do well away, but they
yeah.
both killed it.
They both smashed FPL royalty. Honestly, I mean, I thought it was Salah and KDB. It was clearly Salah and KDB last season.
Yeah.
Bruno made a late charge, but he's staking his claim this year properly to be like an elite FPL asset.
Yeah, well, after the return last year, everyone had Bruno, right? He was the
Yeah,
main one.
he was the guy.
He's. I think in the beginning, no one wanted him because he had the
Yeah,
blank week at the first week, but
yeah,
since then he's been on fire.
yeah. It's hard to ignore, to be honest. And the other thing that didn't really cause too much trouble, as much as I thought it would for me, was not owning Son and Kane. Not just this week, but over the last couple of weeks as well.
Mhm.
And what did you think of them versus? And on top of that, so that was one. And owning Vardy paid off quite nicely against them as well. So, what did you think of Spurs? I mean, they're reverting to type a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think in the beginning we've seen this with Mourinho when he was at United too. Like the first few game weeks, he kills it,
Yeah,
right? Like United comes out firing. This year it was
yeah,
Spurs; they came out firing, and then all of a sudden everybody starts to realize that they have one tactic.
yeah,
Son goes long, Kane comes deep, and just stop their counter
yeah,
attack, and you're good, right? Like
yeah.
they can't dominate games. They don't take over games.
True.
Um, yeah, it's been tough. Like even today against Stoke, you
Yeah,
could tell that they just weren't at it, and it's a worrying sign for them. Yeah,
yeah. Fair enough. But the thing is that I mean, Son has still been getting the points, but everyone's saying that he's going to get found out because he's severely outperforming his XG. So it's just a matter of time, and it's one of those where you're not really sure right now. Not holding them is not the worst thing in the world as well, right?
yeah. Well, they have good fixtures coming up, so if I'm a Son owner, so I'm gonna keep him.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I mean, if you've held them all this time, there's a turn, right? Their fixtures look up quite nicely after
Yeah,
the game week. Not
yeah,
even this. I think they play. I don't know they play this week, but I think after 16, I had them marked down as sort of definitely ones to look at as well.
yeah. Grealish is the alternative, and
Mm,
his
mm,
fixtures are gonna get much more difficult going forward. So I wouldn't make that switch.
Yeah.
Plus, what I found out about Grealish, like through the stats, if you look at his
Yeah.
stats, is he gets his double-digit scores every 3 weeks, which is weird. So if it's in the last 12 game weeks, every 3 game weeks he gets his scores, right? So if you don't have him, don't bring him in for the next 2 game weeks, and then we try to
Because the thing is, I think it was the first time a couple of weeks ago that Villa won and Grealish didn't return, though.
Yeah.
Right? They had the El Ghazi goal, and then I don't know, it was 2-1 or something. And then this past week, he won a couple of penalties, or he won one penalty, had one assist as well. He is the engine of what they do, but at the same time, you see, is that money better spent elsewhere as well, right?
Yeah.
We will look at the double game weeks and all coming up, and then we'll see who's a better option depending on what you're planning. Burnley came through quite nicely against Wolves. I was holding Daniel Podence, did really all over them, Burnley were, to be honest. And didn't get the clean sheet, but at 4.4 million, was it Taylor? Matthew Taylor? Charlie Taylor?
Charlie
Taylor, that's it.
He
got the assist as well. Yeah, so they were all over them, to be honest.
Yeah, Burnley were back to normal. Like you could see their defense was solid. They were attacking up the wings, putting crosses in the box, right? And their strikers finally scored 2 goals, which is what they can't seem to do, right? Wolves, on the other hand, without Jimenez, they changed their formation back to 5D. So it
they're
looked
looking a bit lost.
Sorry?
They're looking a bit lost now, to be honest.
Yeah, without Jimenez, they don't have the target player up front. They tried Fabio Silva for 2 games, but he can't seem to hold the ball up.
It provides a lot of structure, the way they play. And if you've played a certain way for so long, it provides you with a good structure. And then to sort of shift that, I mean, Neto and Podence, they're putting up the numbers, they're good value for money, FPL-wise. But essentially, it's hard. It's a hard shift. You can't do it week in, week out. Can't play on the counter and that tiki-taka type football at Burnley is away, right, as well.
Yeah, because Jimenez gave them that outlet, right? So if Podence and Neto had the ball, they always knew Jimenez was there. Now it's the 2 of them and no one. So
yeah, exactly.
There's still good options, good cheap options to have, but I wouldn't count on them for every single game week.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I am unfortunately counting on Podence at the moment. Vardy's given me a weird dilemma because as far as I penciled him in, he's gone over by 1 week of what I was supposed to hold him. I was supposed to drop him for the Spurs game. But then he kept scoring, and I listened to your advice because you said if he's on a streak, he's on a streak. Once he stops, then you know what, drop him. But he just keeps going, and now I'm sort of part of my plan, and we always plan a couple of games ahead, was to drop him now and then sort of go Podence to Son or go upgrade my defense to Robertson or something like that. But he's really giving me a problem in terms of what to do. But it's one of those that I'll have to figure out by the end of this week.
Yeah, I think Vardy is a differential now, right? So people who had Kane maybe dropped down to Vardy, but a lot of people dropped Kane and Vardy and upgraded their mid. So Vardy is a differential. He's a good differential to have as long as people are still relying on KDB and Son.
Yeah, that's the thing. And all the KDB and Son owners were sitting in the mid. I mean, you'll have Salah or Bruno, one of the two, but all the ones who owned KDB and Son lost out quite a bit because everyone returned as well. Bamford returned, Wilson returned, Welbeck returned. All of these strikers returned as well as all the midfielders, premium midfielders, highly owned, aside from Son and Kane.
Yeah, a lot of the big guys returned. Yeah.
I mean, we've been punished a lot for not keeping the faith. So it was nice for it to go the other way as well.
Yeah, I didn't have Vardy. I dropped him already.
Yeah, I know. But you did it quite early on, so you didn't feel that. You didn't feel the pinch, which is good.
Yeah, I didn't feel the hurt.
Fair enough, but I'm actually quite confused. I mean, going into this game week, fine. But there's this game week this weekend, right? So Boxing Day and then the day after and the day after. So Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is game week 16, right?
Yeah.
And then we lead into game week 17, which is New Year's fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have 18 and 19. Are those both after the FA Cup?
Yeah, so 18 and 19, I think January 15th. And then January 12th.
So we'll go. Let me actually bring it up, right? Because we can discuss it properly then. We have this matrix that's been created by Lego Mane. It's extremely useful and sort of gives you an idea of who's playing when, who has better fixtures, the color-coded based on the FDR as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see the game week 18 that only 10 teams play, and game week 19 you have the 10 double games, right?
Yeah, so essentially game week 18 on the 12th of Jan. So we're heading into 15 and 16 over the next couple of days. And then we have 17. 18 is a blank game week. And for those who are not too sure, a blank game week is a game week where certain teams don't play. And this is quite a big blank game week because I think it's one of the bigger ones that we have. Like, I mean, usually have two teams not playing, three, like 2 games off, 3 games off. There's 5 games off, which means 10 teams are not playing. But then, funnily enough, which rarely happens as well, is those same 10 teams play twice in the following game week, in game week 19, which
That
is
never
also
happens.
quite rare. Normally, you try and identify someone who's playing in previous seasons, you would try and identify some team who's playing in 18 as well as playing twice in 19.
Yeah.
But here, you can't have someone who plays 18 and then plays twice in 19. It just doesn't work. But yeah, essentially, we'll have to think about a couple of things. Now, I'm a wild card, first wild card. Let's talk about it. I know we don't have it, either of us. But if you're holding a wild card at this moment in time, the last game week to use it is before game week 16, right?
It's the 28th December. Yeah, that's the deadline.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're in a position where you have your wild card, would you be building a team that's balanced for the future, of course, but you have the flexibility of another wild card in the future? So would you, I mean, you'd really ideally focus on game week 19 specifically, right?
It's tough. It depends on where you are in terms of the league table, right? In terms of your own rank. So if you're trying to catch up, then you want the best possible team, right? You don't want to waste your wild card and pick up people who are just differentials, because if the differentials don't do well, then you're languishing at the bottom, right? So, but if you're at the top, then I would build for game week 9. I would build for game week 18 and 19. So get about 7 or 8 players for game week 18.
Yeah.
Right. Again, they should be players that you want to keep for at least the next 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then for game week 19, you can use your free hit. Right. So you still have your second wild card, you still have your bench boost, and you have your free hit for game week 19, and your team is set for game week 20 and 21. Right. If you're at the bottom, then you have to take some risks. In which case, I would be using my wild card to set up the team for game week 19, get as many double game week players, and then use the free hit for game week 18. Right?
Yeah.
So you need as many double game
Fair
week
enough.
as you can get. Yeah.
And but these are sort of options if you have your first wild card. If you have that flexibility of rejigging your whole team now, then this is what you could potentially look at, right? And if you build your team for 19 specifically, then you can bench boost as well.
Yeah.
If not, right, if you're in a position like us, which many are as well, you need to be a bit smarter about it, I think, right? And you need to decide what you want to do now. What are your thoughts? Let's go with that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much of a risk you're willing to take. So I'll give you my perspective. So from what I'm doing for my team, I started last week building my team for game week 19. So my plan is to use my free hit in game week 18 and to take a risk. So I'm not going to go with the norm and the players everyone has. I'll take a risk with some of the players and hope they get some points.
Okay.
Right? A lot of people will have 6, maybe 5 players that week.
Yeah.
If they have more than 6 or 7 and they've already used their wild card, then that means in game week 19, they'll also be short double game week players. So that's a chance to make up points there too. So my plan is free hit game week 18, increase your double game week players for game week 19, and then maybe bench boost, right, in game week 19. That's my plan, only because this is the biggest double game week we'll have this year. Like we'll have other games, as we can see, the TBA games. So we still have United's, we still have Newcastle, Aston Villa, we still have City, Aston Villa.
So on the right, furthest right, those are games that have been missed, basically.
Yeah, the early games.
Those need to be rescheduled. So there's essentially some as well on game week 29. I think it's penciled in, right?
Yeah, so game week 29 is the second blank game week. It's the FA Cup quarterfinals.
Okay.
So there'll be games that week, but it all
that will be missed, basically. They'll have to be made up in 30 or 31 or something.
Yeah, so the key about that game week is it depends on who qualifies. So if a team like United doesn't qualify, then there's a chance that they might have a blank depending on the team they're supposed to play against that week.
Right.
But then if
Right.
Burnley doesn't qualify or Aston Villa doesn't qualify, then those
Right.
games will be made up that week,
Right.
right?
Okay. Fair
So
enough.
it's
Fair
a
enough.
blank, but it's a potentially a very small blank.
I mean, this is probably the biggest one we're going to have in this sort of format as well. Right? The one thing that I'm struggling with is the upside of a free hit in 18. Right?
Hmm.
If you're not going to bench boost in 19, right? If you're sort of trying to build your team around, my thoughts are, you know what? Take game week 18, terrible game week on the chin, right? Try
Yeah,
and identify players because look, City, Brighton, Spurs, Villa,
yeah.
Wolves, Everton,
So let's
Arsenal,
go through
Palace.
it. So let's go through it, right? So
Okay,
we
yeah,
start from the top, right? So we have Brighton and Aston Villa, right? So
yeah.
most people have three Aston Villa players right now. A lot of people have three Aston Villa players, a defender or a goalie plus
Yeah.
Grealish and
So
Watford.
let's say everyone has Martinez, right?
Yeah,
So you're there.
yeah.
But
So we already
I
have.
mean,
Yeah,
if you think about it, City, Brighton, sorry, right? City
mm,
play Brighton, you triple up on City, right? You go a defender, you go midfielder, and you go attacker or triple up City attack. But
yeah,
like games like that are, I feel like they're games that are hard to call as well. Like Spurs, Villa, Wolves, Everton, Arsenal, Palace. Arsenal, Palace at the moment, you can't really tell, right? You maybe jump on Zaha or something like that. But the upside for me is the challenge.
yeah. So there is again, it's true that there's low upside, but
Mm,
we have seen this season like the games are hard to call. So it
mm,
depends. For me, it depends on who you have, right?
mm.
So just looking at those numbers,
Yeah,
like if I'm looking at
yeah,
my team, I have
yeah,
two Villa players already,
yeah.
right? I don't have anyone from Palace or Newcastle or Wolves or
Mm,
Sheffield or Arsenal,
mm, mhm.
right? So City,
Yeah,
I have Kevin De Bruyne and
yeah,
João Cancelo, and then
yeah,
I have Son. So I
yeah,
have about five guys,
yeah,
right? Now, if you have DCL, that's six. If you
yeah.
have Wilson, that's seven. If you
Yeah.
have Zaha, that's eight,
Hmm.
right? So if you have
Yeah.
eight guys, you're good.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
don't need
You
to
drive it
field.
through.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely like for me, if I have eight or if I can build towards 7 or 8, I'm not too fussed with that game week. My focus is more on 19 then, because then if I have eight playing in 18, that
yeah,
means I have eight not playing in 19, right?
yeah.
Then
Eight
you,
playing one game. Eight playing one game in 19.
oh yes, of course, yeah, yeah, eight playing one game in
Yeah. So
Now,
that
the one thing to keep in mind that I think, now my thought process is
yeah,
that if I have eight good players, though, right, that are playing, right? So let's say my KDB, for example,
yeah.
KDB plays Brighton in 18 and Palace in 19.
Hmm.
Easily, KDB could outscore someone who has a double game week, like if you were to go with a Southampton midfielder and your free hit, like who play Leicester and Leeds, KDB in one game week could easily outscore them in two, right?
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thinking around it. So if they play once, if you have a good core, I'm asking, what if I want to save both free hit and I want to save my free hit basically. I don't want to use it in 18 or 19.
So that's where you sort of end up. For me, you end up losing out because if you have three players less, right? So let's say you have the same players everybody else will have minus
Mhm.
three players, right? So if
Yeah,
somebody uses their free hit, chances
yeah,
are they're picking up the same players you have,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
So unless someone takes a risk, so if they have three players more, say
yeah,
they get 10 points more than you,
yeah,
right? Not a big deal.
mm,
But the week after,
mm,
they stack up on the double game week.
yeah,
So if you don't,
mm,
and let's say KDB does well enough that he covers that 10-point differential,
yeah,
but the other guys each get 2 points more,
yeah,
right? You're still going to be losing out at least 2 to 5 or 10 points again that week, even if
yeah,
your team does well because everyone's playing two games,
yeah,
right? So if instead of a KDB, let's say
yeah,
you free hit and you have KDB game week 18, and then you bring in Sadio Mane in game week
yeah,
19, and he
yeah,
plays two games, there's a potential for him to do more than KDB does in game week 19.
yeah.
So
True.
instantly, the person
I
who
mean,
uses
but to
the
be
free
fair,
hit,
he plays United in 19, so that's 1 point there with the yellow card, yellow card, and no assists, no goals. But yeah, we'll take that under consideration.
at least he'll start one game,
Yeah, that's true. To be fair, that's true.
right?
I mean, the way they get vexed, they're definitely going to be playing in both in some capacity or the other.
Yeah, and you know the Leeds concede a lot of goals, right? So if you have the teams against Leeds,
Mm.
right? If you decide to take a risk on them, that's more potential there. So
Yeah.
it all depends on what you're willing to do, right? And for me, it's free hitting in game week 18 because I'm already planning for game week 19.
Yeah. The one I would look at definitely is if you are planning to build your team towards 19, towards game week 19, the teams that we would say keep an eye on. Leeds, attacking assets, right? So Bamford, everyone would have, plus someone else if you want, a Rafinha or something like that, because they play Brighton and Southampton.
Yeah.
The other one, I'd say, and also then if you're building and not free hitting, you can hold them after because they play Newcastle and Leicester after that as well.
Yeah.
The other one I would say is West Ham during that week because they play Burnley and they play West Brom. Defensively, those theoretically could be 12 points, 2 clean sheets for a defender. A Fabianski, a Kufal, a Cresswell. Kufal at 4.6, his underlying numbers are quite good. And they play Palace the week after as well.
Yeah, it's a very good long-term option.
Yeah, Kufal, class. I got Cresswell in at a point, and I'm like, I would have been okay with Kufal if I had sort of gone down one, because if he's also taken over a few set pieces as well from Cresswell, eh?
Yeah, well, they do it from both sides, right? So Cresswell from the left, Kufal from the right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So that's what I would say is keep an eye. Southampton as well. I mean, they play Leicester and Leeds, kind of a middling sort of double game week.
I think Southampton and Leicester have good fixtures, right? So Leicester against Chelsea. Chelsea's defense looks good, but Vardy likes playing against teams that sort of pressure the ball forward. He gets space in behind, so he looks good against Chelsea and Southampton. Then he plays Everton and Leeds, so that's a good 4 fixtures for him. Southampton similarly, like Leicester, Leeds, Arsenal, and Aston Villa. Those are good 4 fixtures for him too, right? So I would look at him too, and I think that's
Vardy
comes up. If you don't have a Vardy, now, then you're looking at that double game week, thinking, maybe you drop a Kevin De Bruyne and you bring in a Jamie Vardy, right?
Yeah. The one thing as well is that if you play a free hit in a week, we discovered this last year, but if anyone's unsure, if you play a free hit in a particular week, so before 19, you play a free hit, but before playing the free hit, you make a transfer, that transfer won't be active. That will just come on. Yeah, that will disappear. It worked against me in game week 36, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the key. So if you have not planned ahead, you have a game week 15 to 16, that's 1 move. 16 to 17, that's 2 moves. Any moves you make, if you keep those 2 moves for game week 17, you think I have 2 free and I'll then use my free hit, you will lose the 2 free. So any moves you want to make, if you're using your free hit in 17 to 18, you use before 17.
Yes, correct. So essentially, even if you have free transfers, and you plan to free hit in 18, any transfers you do that week wouldn't count. They would be nullified by the free hit, essentially.
Yeah, and then game week 18, you have 1 move if you use your free hit. You will not have 2 free
Exactly. Similarly with wildcard and all of this. I am leaning towards potentially trying to build towards a long-term structure, a strategy in 19. Potentially see if I can survive 18 as well, and then hold everything. That would be ideal for me.
Yeah, so you're keeping everybody for 19, right? Like just to survive 18, keep 19, and then use your chips later.
Yeah, potentially. I'm happy to take a -4 because I can build my transfers. Let's say if I have 2 free after 18, then I could even take a -4 or -8 and try and see. I mean, not -8. This is before this year, I wasn't taking any hits, and now I talk about them like they're nothing. They are. Please don't take hits if you don't have to. But essentially, sometimes like the upside with this could be really big, and it can make it up.
Yeah. So again, see, I'm not as high placed as everyone else. So for me, using the free hit in 18 helps me catch up. And in 19, I think the most overrated chip is the bench boost.
Yeah.
You have no idea what your bench is going to do from 1 week to the other. Like last week, I think people had Dallas and Justin and their bench, and if you were one of those and you were hoping you used your bench boost because your bench killed it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the most underrated. So I'd rather use it when I have double unique players on my bench. Right.
Yeah,
so
very true. Makes sense. Makes sense. And if you are doing that, then you can bench boost to 19. If you don't, then don't waste your bench boost. If you have players playing once only on the bench and players are not really like value, don't waste your bench boost on 19. Save it for, and if you don't not holding a first wild card now, then use your bench boost after your second wild card when you've built a team that can work for that. All right.
And it's always towards the end of the season, right? Like you'll always have those changes. Like there's always players that do well at the beginning, players that do well at the end, right? So you always want to take advantage of that and having your chip stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this though, I mean, one caveat as well is that, you know what, it really depends on what the form is like. I mean, we can make all the plans that we want, but you also have to there'll be 4 game weeks before then that will really tell us where teams are headed and what teams are looking like as well. Because before that, Spurs play Leicester, Wolves, then Fulham and Leeds, right? We'll know what kind of Spurs we're going to get by the time they're meant to play Villa and Sheffield, right? You'll really back yourself for them to win, or you'll be like, you know what, they're going to get a 1-0 or something like that. Same with Leicester as well. They play Palace and Newcastle in the game week before. So everything will sort of determine it. So it's all dependent on what their form is like going into it.
Yeah, and you want to keep in mind that those 2 games are very close, right? 16th and 20th. So there's a good chance that players will get benched, right? So keep that in mind, because not everyone you pick will start both games, right?
Yes, exactly.
Salah and Mane is a chance with Bruno.
Literally, they play Saturday and then Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
I think Saturday and then Tuesday.
Yeah.
So and generally it's going to be. I mean, it's a good time, to be honest. It's a great time, but FPL wise, it's quite condensed in general. Yeah, I think that sort of mostly covers my thoughts on it. Hammer, anything else with regard to this?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say and I reiterate is based on your team, right? It depends on who you have, who you don't have, and how much of a risk you're willing to take. Besides that, like, everyone's strategy will be different.
Yeah, 100%. And if you have any questions, drop us a DM on Instagram or anything in the comments, and we're more than happy to discuss it with you guys. But aside from that, there's still a few game weeks to go, man.
Yeah, next week.
So there is next week. Let's jump onto that. You okay with that?
Yeah, let's go.
So Boxing Day, Christmas is off tomorrow, but essentially Boxing Day, Leicester United early kickoff. But what are we sort of thinking about this game week? Fixture that stands out to me, City Newcastle. They have always loved it. Another one that sort of sticks out to me as well is Liverpool West Brom. So it should be good.
Yeah, I think City Newcastle has always been Aguero's game.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to see if he starts. I don't think he will. I think Gabriel Jesus proved himself midweek, so he might play. I'd keep KDB for that game, but I'm a bit iffy. United Leicester looks good because United's defense doesn't look good, so I think Vardy might have some potential there. Besides that, Liverpool West Brom. I think Leeds Burnley looks like a decent game, because if Leeds don't defend, then Burnley have a chance. So I'm actually leaning Burnley in that game.
Yeah, Burnley will be forced to attack against their will.
Yeah,
because there'll be so much space. They just won't know what to do.
Yeah, so I think that game's written for Burnley, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, so it's Saturday, Sunday actually, those fixtures, and then game week 16 starts on the Monday. So your deadlines will be Saturday 11 a.m. and then Monday about 1-ish, 1 p.m.
Your decision making is tight, right?
Turnaround is massive. Although Project Restart worked well for all of us, to be honest. So maybe these tight turnarounds are good for us as well.
Yeah, you don't have too much time to think about.
Exactly. With regard to that, captain-wise, Salah, KDB, anyone else you can see past that? I generally don't favor the 12:30 kickoff. Last week, it paid off massively for those that did favor it. But essentially, just generally, I'm a bit... they just don't go the way that you expect them to go sometimes. That's my own personal bias. But I'll be debating between KDB and Salah. KDB would be a no-brainer if City were... I'm waiting, as a United fan, it's weird, but I'm waiting to come onto one of these pods and be like, you know what, we have the old City back. Because it would just make my FPL life so much easier.
It's Yeah, I was looking at KDB's stats, and he's doing well, like in terms of his expected assists.
Yeah.
But the team's not putting the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm leaning Salah because what he scored in 4 straight games, and he got benched last game, so he will start this game.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm leaning Salah just because I'm 100% sure he'll play
Yeah.
against
100%.
Brom with Sam Allardyce just coming in.
Yeah.
You know they're going to defend for their lives, but they don't have any confidence right now. So I'm leaning Salah. But
Yeah, I
KDB will
fancy
sort
a
it out.
penalty as well. I fancy a Salah penalty, to be honest. It's going to be one of those.
Yeah.
And the week after, or the game week after, rather.
Yeah. So
Newcastle, Liverpool, then.
yeah, like it's away to Newcastle, right? Like, would Salah start again? That's the big question, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
the
the
thing.
last game of the week, so
It is. And
I will go Salah again, but I'm also leaning Kane if you have Kane against Fulham.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that would be a shout.
That's a
That would
good
be a
one
shout.
too.
I mean, Wednesday looks where the bulk of the points are, to be honest.
Yeah, if you have Kane or Son against Fulham, that's a good option.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's Salah's week. So it's Salah on 15 and 16.
Yeah, I think, you know what, it gives you a lot of peace of mind to just do one and lock it in, to be honest, because that way you know that that's one less thing to worry about, and I can focus on the rest of it.
Yeah, and they do have 3 days, right? They have more days than most of the teams.
Yeah, exactly. You guys looked at that last week. Yeah, they have the
Yeah.
biggest break between games as well, so they should be well rested.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but yeah, I don't see past Salah for those 2 game weeks.
Brilliant. I mean, makes sense. Makes it easy, to be honest. Let's look at differentials because I know we've gone over.
Yeah.
Richarlison. So we're looking at differentials for the next couple of weeks. You've gone Richarlison. Their 2 games are essentially Everton, Sheffield, and City. Okay.
Yeah. So I was looking mainly at the Sheffield game, right, for Richarlison, but at the same time, like I'm thinking City's defense doesn't look that strong.
Yeah.
And if they don't get a result against Newcastle, or if they score only 1 goal against Newcastle, then they might come out slightly firing against Everton, wanting to score a second or a third.
Yeah.
So I think Richarlison has some potential there. DCL is slowing down. He's not getting goals.
Slowing down. He's getting attacking returns every week. If you've got him for 7 million, right?
Yeah.
Bargain.
Yeah, if you get it for 7, he's a bargain, right? But Richarlison's price is falling, so I think if you don't have DCL, then Richarlison's is a cheaper alternative. And I think we discussed this last week as well, where he looks good on penalties.
Yeah. He's definitely passing the eye test. I feel like he's not getting enough points, less points than he deserves.
Yeah.
With Haas has gone with Rafinha. Inspired selection there. Leeds, they play Burnley, and then they play West Brom.
Has goal all over last game too, right?
Right, exactly. I think that was my call last week. Maybe I rolled him on a couple of weeks, but I think I dropped him, and then it's differential curse. It's my differential curse. But essentially, Kazim's gone for Firmino. Liverpool's games we've already discussed. Is a great shout. He's looking for him. He's finally scored at Anfield. I think I don't know. He must have done, but he scored against Spurs at Anfield. And I've got Martial. I just think he looked sharp. Unlucky enough to get a couple of goals, but he got a few assists as well.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go on Firmino as well. Jota's out up until February, so Firmino is a very good option if you don't have Salah or Mane.
Yeah.
Then you want that Liverpool differential.
If you don't have Salah, Mane, why? Firstly.
Yeah, that's true. Then, I'm assuming you might be a newbie.
No, but you know what? It's the risks that pay off. So fair enough if you don't hold either. I mean, Mane, not many are holding, but Salah, as much as no matter what your biases are towards him, he's becoming more and more FPL.
He's having his best season ever. So if you don't have him, that's
amazing. I think it's the new haircut. It's made him really aerodynamic potentially. But that's amazing, man. Aside from that, guys, get your teams in early, lock and load, enjoy your Christmas break. Anything to add?
Yeah, Boxing Day games are always very high scoring.
Okay.
Right? So if you're making any free transfers, don't focus on the defenders.
I have no defenders, so I'm gonna have to focus on the defenders. But you know what? If I have no choice. Chilwell, I don't know if he's out. He is out at least for this
Yeah,
next
he's
game
out
week.
for the 50 fixture.
Chilwell and Reece James both out for the next game week and potentially the one after. So keep an eye out. You might want to look at some defensive options. Maybe upgrade to Robertson. Might be a good time to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. All right, guys, take it easy. Have a good one. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, take care.